Time for us to check back in with the thread that runs so true. If you've missed any of the previous readings, just look in the description below for a playlist. Reports sent beyond this state that we didn't count our election votes until we had counted our dead had good factual foundation. But many people believe this statement concerned county, state, and national elections between the two major political parties. It did concern them, but only in a minor degree as compared to these trustee elections, which were supposed to be non-political. They were to a certain degree non-political, but in these local trustee elections it would have been better if they had chosen political sides. It was a certain church group pitted against another church group. It was the wets against the dries. It was feuding clan against feuding clan. It was a certain group for one teacher and a certain group for another teacher, and it didn't matter which trustee was elected and to whom he gave the school. The candidate he had defeated and his following, who had lost their votes, made school teaching impossible for the teacher that had been recommended by his trustee and hired by the county school board. They would find fault with the teacher, get signatures on a petition, and try to have him ousted. Guns were often brought into play at these elections. Men were killed and seriously wounded. People were stabbed with knives. Men fought with clubs and rocks. Often the schoolyard where one of these elections was held turned out to be the scene of a brawl. Often as many as 20 men were lying on the grass, knocked senseless, while 40 or 50 more fought over their prone bodies, stepping on them until the county sheriff and a posse of deputies had to be called. If the sheriff and his deputies were lucky, they could stop the fight. There have been occasions when the sheriff and his deputies knew the kind of fighters they were and stayed away from the election grounds until the fight was over. The election of local school trustees in each of these districts was a big event in the community. Scarcely ever was there a peaceful election. With the memories of these past experiences, with the memory of my first teaching experience at Lonesome Valley, and the daily experience I had with these many school trustees since I had become superintendent of Greenwood County Schools, I was compelled to try to do something about them. And of the 120 county school superintendents in the state of Kentucky, I may have been the first to attempt to oust the school trustees. I don't know. I seethed when I thought of the power of a district school trustee over the superintendent of county schools, over 5 county board members, and certainly over the school teacher. The local district school trustees told my school board and me what to do. Trustees who couldn't write their names, who would not know their own name if they had been printed on road signs, told college graduates with years of teaching experience how to teach school. Often these trustees visited the schools once a week and gave the teachers orders. If the teachers didn't teach according to their instructions, punish this pupil and let that one go, then these trustees came to me. They tried to make me act against the teacher in their behalf. That I wouldn't do. Because I felt deeply for the members of my profession. I fought for them and with them with every ounce of energy, mental and physical, that I had. If these were not injustices I was fighting against, I had never in my lifetime seen an injustice. In no other profession had I heard of one worker with 9 bosses. Gentlemen, I have a proposition to which I have given much thought lately, I said to members of my school board. It's the injustice of this abominable trustee system. I don't see why a school teacher has to have 9 bosses. I propose to do away with the school trustee system. Well, I'll be. What else will you propose? Mooner Bentworth shouted, jumping to his feet. With one hand he twirled a horn of his blond mustache. With the other he gripped the arm of his chair. Don't you know you are going against a state law? Don't you know you will get yourself and the members of this Board of Education in trouble? I agree with Mooner Bentworth, Tobias Claxton said. I think he's right. I never heard tell of anything like this, William Dawson said softly, shaking his head, then hit the cuspidor perfectly with amber spittle at a distance of 8 feet. "Jesse," he said plainly, now that his mouth was free, "you are fooling with something very dangerous. Any superintendent that has this trustee system to work with finds it very dangerous," I said. "It's dangerous to the whole state school system. And gentlemen," I explained, "I know this state has a law in favor of district school trustees, but we could go on record, this Greenwood County Board of Education, as being against this system, and I'll send copies of our record to the state superintendent of schools and to members of the Kentucky legislature." "Oh, no, never," Mooner shouted louder than before. "Then we will be in hot water over our heads." "I'm not for this either," Manly Warburton said. "I believe in the old way. It was good enough for me. It's good enough for the children of today. The trustee system is a wonderful thing. I was trustee for 9 years. 4 members of this school board are against my proposal," I said. "I'd like to know what Mr. Dangerfield thinks about it." Benton Dangerfield had remained silent. He sat there, looking at me with twinkling light blue eyes. He had agreed many times on the proposals that I had suggested. "I'm against it," was all he said. Then I knew my proposal was doomed. It didn't even get a motion. All of my board members were against me. I wanted to leave this as a record on my minute books. I still proposed to do something about this system. My fight about this system was just beginning. On the morning of September 11th, our 4 school buses transported Greenwood County High School pupils to Maxwell High School. They transported approximately 100 pupils to Maxwell High School, whom Lansboro High School had made arrangements to teach. Larry Anderson, now superintendent of Lansboro City Schools, his teachers, and members of his city school board must have been disappointed to find a few of the high school classrooms vacant. Teachers must have been disappointed. The approximate sum of $800 per month they had expected to receive from us went to our own Maxwell High School, where we employed 3 new teachers to help with the additional pupils. On the afternoon of September 11th, John Farnsworth, elderly local politician of Lansboro, who had congratulated me on the street, laid his arm across my shoulder. "Jesse, you are a product of this town," he said. "You graduated from Lansboro High School. You have been principal of Lansboro High School. Now you are wrecking our school system." "I'm not wrecking your school system," I said. "I'm working for my own." "Now listen," he whispered in my ear. "Can't we get this school business all ironed out? Can't you throw—" "Throw what?" I broke in before he had time to finish. "Do you know that I am under oath to do my duty for my school system? If I were not under oath, do you think I'd throw anything?" "You can be somebody or you can wreck yourself," he snapped. "I don't appreciate your thinking so little of me as to think I can be propositioned," I told him in cold turkey. "Who sent you here anyway? You better get along." "You'll be sorry," he said. "We've got many good lawyers here, and they're loyal to Lansboro." It took one day for the news of what had happened to Lansboro High School to spread over the town. Pupils came home from school and told what had happened. From this time on, my Lansboro friends would meet me on the street and wouldn't speak to me. They would turn their heads in the opposite direction when they passed me. A few of them jeered. This sort of thing cut me like a knife. I had known these people all my life, and they had been my friends. "I'm ashamed of you, Jesse Stewart," were Jason Hinton's first words when we met on the street one morning. "Don't ever come to my apartment again. You're not welcome. Mrs. Hinton and I don't want to be bothered with you." The majority of my high school classmates wouldn't speak to me. I wasn't welcomed in the stores. I was sorry that my office was in the courthouse of this county seat town. This was the first time in my life I had been shunned by all my Lansboro friends. It cut me to the heart when people turned their heads and spat when they met me instead of the usual "good morning" as it had been down through the years. These were the same people who had once cheered me when I played football for Lansboro High School. I soon stayed off the street as much as possible. I spent the first part of the night in my office working and the early morning hours in my hotel room sleeping. The light in my office was always the last to be switched off, according to Bill Hayes, night policeman. For the mayor of Lansboro, John Moore, and members of his city council had voted the town in night darkness as an economy measure. The following week, when I returned one noon hour from the hotel to my office, Sheriff Bill Creason stopped me on the street and gave me a summons to appear in court. When I received this summons, the first one I had ever received, a warm glow came over my face and my heart pumped a little faster. I thought about what Mooner Bentworth had said at the board meeting when I made the suggestion that we transport all our county high school pupils to Maxwell High School. Now I knew we were up against a real fight. I'd have to have help and counsel. Oscar Vinson, who was a citizen and taxpayer of Greenwood County, had brought suit against the Greenwood County School Board and the superintendent of Greenwood County in his own behalf and that of other taxpaying citizens of Greenwood County who were sending their sons and daughters to Lansboro High School. They ask in their petition that we furnish free transportation and that we pay $8 per month per pupil for these county pupils who were going to Lansboro High School. This petition gave the names of the parents who were behind this suit and a list of their sons and daughters now in Lansboro High School. I had checked the list of pupils eligible to attend high school before we sent our pupils to Maxwell High School. I had Margaret Raridan compare the two lists. Many of the pupils now attending Lansboro High School had not passed examination to enter high school. A few of them were sixth grade pupils, but they occupied the seats that had been vacated in Lansboro High School. They kept the teachers whom Lansboro City School Board had employed busy and would pay them as well if they collected the tuition for them from the county. I called the businessmen who had helped me with the school budget into my office to meet with a special session of the Greenwood County School Board. "I told you, young man, you were leading us straight to hell," Mooner Bentworth reminded me. "Now we are in a mess." "We can't talk about the mess," Joe Terrell said. "We've got to work and work fast. We can't let them take money that is to pay our teachers. If they get it, their teachers will be paid twice the salaries our teachers are supposed to get." I showed the board members and businessmen the list of unauthorized county pupils now attending Lansboro High School, and with county school records we showed them where sixth grade county school pupils had been accepted at Lansboro High School. "They haven't any right to invade our schools and take our pupils," Manley Warburton said. Then came the problem of getting lawyers. Each board member suggested getting his favorite lawyer in Lansboro, and I remembered John Farnsworth had told me that Lansboro lawyers would be loyal to Lansboro. I suggested to members of my school board that we employ out-of-town lawyers, the best lawyers in Auckland. Businessmen from the county agreed with me. Then my school board agreed to let Tobias Claxton and me employ the lawyers with a promise to pay when we got the money. We hadn't made any provision in our budget for attorney fees. Tobias Claxton and I went to Auckland that afternoon and employed the firm of Tanner, Stevens, Denton, and Denton to be our attorneys. 2 of the 4 county businessmen who had met with us and 3 of our county school board members didn't think we had a chance of winning this lawsuit. They found in the Kentucky school laws 2 strong points against us. The law might have been a little on their side, but justice, all of justice, was on our side. On the day members of the county school board and the businessmen and I discussed in my office how we would handle this lawsuit, Jason Spleaves, one of the largest men in size in Greenwood County and the biggest county taxpayer, heard about it and came to see me. Since this man couldn't read and write, he had my secretary, Margaret Raridan, read the claims against the county in the suit that Oscar Vinson had brought against us. He had her read parts of this petition over and over to him so he could get it in his head. We were aggravated at this man since we needed Margaret Raridan all the time, but we couldn't keep her from reading this petition to Jason Spleaves. He was a taxpayer and citizen of Greenwood County, and he had a right to know facts concerning the county. She also read him the list of unauthorized county pupils attending Lansboro High School. "Begad, I'll do something about this," he said when he left the office. Before the lawyers were ready to act, he had done something about it. I was standing on the street nearby when it happened. "Oscar, why did you bring suit against us?" Jason said when he met him on the street. "Now you get your name off that petition and drop that lawsuit in a hurry." "I won't do it," Oscar said. "Listen, Oscar," Jason reminded him as he shook his big finger under his nose. "You have sold me the rottenest moonshine whiskey I ever drinked. You know it. If you don't get your name off that lawsuit, I'll go before the grand jury and indict you for bootlegging and prove it on you and send you to the penitentiary. Hate to do it, Oscar, on account of your wife and children, but I will if you don't drop that petition." Oscar Vinson's face turned red as an October sourwood leaf. He got away from Jason Spleaves as fast as he could run. In 2 weeks, Oscar Vinson's name was off the petition and the suit against us was dropped. Now that our money wasn't tied up, we paid our teachers their second month's salary. After this suit was dropped, another week hadn't passed until Morris Thornton, another citizen and taxpayer of Greenwood County, had sued us. The old petition was retyped and Morris Thornton's name was substituted for Oscar Vinson. The date was set for the new trial, and something happened again. On the night before the date of the trial, Greenwood County had one of the greatest electrical storms in the history of our county. Lightning split giant oak trees from butt to tip, burned barns, killed livestock. Rain fell in torrents that flooded roads and valleys and washed out bridges. Electric and telephone wires were broken. Though it was late for one of these storms, it was the greatest and most destructive the people had ever known. On this night, Morris Thornton had gone to bed in good health and looked forward to the following day when he would be the leader in a courthouse packed with people. But the thunder awoke him in the night when his house seemed to be falling apart. He arose from his bed, pushed aside the window blind, and took one look at a world that seemed to be on fire. His heart failed him. He died. "Even God in heaven is with us," Jason Spleaves said next day when the second suit had ended. "It's a good token, men," he told members of the school board. "We're going to win this suit. We're not just going to fight to delay it, we're going to win it." Now that our money was free again, we paid our rural teachers their 3rd month's salary. We paid them on this very day when we should have been in court. Since the older people of Greenwood County had cause to be superstitious over the way Morris Thornton left this world, it was difficult to get another person to head the lawsuit against us. Since the person suing us had to be a citizen and taxpayer of Greenwood County, not from the Lansboro Independent School District, we hoped that no one to head the suit could be found. But our hopes were in vain. In 3 weeks, this man had been found. If Tom Jackson was superstitious and afraid of death, he must have thought he was prepared to die. He was a leader of his church where there was often great testimonial meetings and much shouting. He wasn't an ordained minister, but he preached when they hadn't a minister. He headed the suit against us. In the meantime, Jason Spleaves must have been at work. Many of our unauthorized county pupils left Lansboro High School and went back to their respective rural schools to finish their grade work. Or, where they were eligible for high school, they went to Maxwell High School. Jason Spleaves had these names fixed in his head, and something was happening to make many parents change their minds. Perhaps the death of Morris Thornton had something to do with it, but nothing happened to Tom Jackson. Jason Spleaves was not able to make him withdraw his name from the petition, and on the third date set for our trial, Tom Jackson was there in robust health. Tom Jackson and a host of parents whose names were on the suit against us sat with the Lansboro lawyers on one side of the courtroom. My 5 board members and I sat with our Auckland lawyers on the other side, and we eyed each other across the courtroom. The courtroom was packed to capacity. A big trial in Lansboro was something of a holiday, and people turned out in great numbers. It was relaxation and enjoyment. They sat in the windows. They stood in the aisles. They thought it would be something like the big murder trials, but they were sadly disappointed when, after a few court preliminaries, they heard the lawyers arguing points before Judge Whittlecomb, Circuit Judge of Greenwood and Lambert counties. Many of them left before the day was over. The day was spent, and lawyers on both sides were not through presenting their contentions to Judge Whittlecomb. Then came a series of long drawn-out legal battles. It took a legally trained mind to follow the charges and countercharges of the lawsuits that followed. After each time we were in court, people would be asking each other what had happened. Since we believed there was so much prejudice against us in Lansboro, we asked for these trials to be held at neighboring courts. We had hearings at Lanceville, county seat of Lambert County, Paisley, county seat of Cantrell County, and at Centerville, county seat of Benton County. On court days, we loaded our 4 school buses to capacity with citizens of Greenwood County who were fighting for us. "Get up close, boys, where you can look the judge right in the eye," Jason Spleaves warned us, "and clap your hands and stomp your feet when the judge rules a point in our favor. We've got to win." Jason Spleaves sat up close, looked straight at the judge, and he kept one hand cupped over his right ear to catch every word the judge said. If he approved of what he heard, he clapped his hands and stomped his feet. If he didn't approve, he moaned unintelligible words while he shook his head sadly. In all the courts in these different towns, Greenwood County citizens attended in great numbers because upon these decisions depended whether or not our school system would be wrecked. These people were interested in their schools. At first, we didn't have any way of explaining our position in these legal battles to the people of Greenwood County. I went to Lambert Reed, the editor of the Lansboro Leader, a county newspaper that circulated throughout the county. Since the city had presented its side, I asked for space to present my side, the county side of what had brought about this great school muddle. He would not give me space. Then I wrote the county side of the story and took it to the Roxford Examiner, the only other paper published in our county. At that time, it had much less circulation than the Lansboro Leader. Very few copies of this paper circulated beyond the metropolitan area of Roxford. Editor Rex Milford gleefully accepted the long article I had written and gave it front page and headlines. Whatever the Lansboro Leader was against, the Roxford Examiner was for. Then I bought personally hundreds of these papers, and they were sent from my office to all parts of Greenwood County. I let the people and teachers of Greenwood County school system read another side of the story. The newspaper fight was a fight to a finish. Judge Whittlecomb finally decided in our favor. He decided that we didn't have to send the East End high school pupils to Lansboro High School, and that we could drive our buses loaded with our pupils past the Lansboro High School and take them on down 18 miles beyond to Maxwell High School if we wished. That we didn't owe Lansboro City School Board any tuition for the pupils that had gone there, and that we didn't owe anything for transportation of these pupils. His decision brought great happiness throughout Greenwood County. "The judge had a better decided for us, son," Jason Spleaves said to me with a wink. "We were on the right side of justice. Besides, Judge Whittlecomb knows where the votes are," he winked again. If he hadn't have decided with us, we'd have beat him the next time he ran for office. There's enough votes in this county to decide his fate, boy, he said, slapping my shoulder with his big hand. Before you start fighting, know you're in the right and fight with all the power there is in you, and then fight some more. But Tom Jackson, his county followers, and the Lansboro City School Board still had another chance at us, for this case went to the Court of Appeals of Kentucky for a final decision. When the final verdict was rendered, Judge Whittlecomb's decision was upheld. If my memory is correct, we had approximately 32 lawsuits while I was superintendent of Greenwood County Schools, and we won 31 1/2. For us, justice had prevailed over the petty, flimsy, non-essential school laws, but we had to fight for that justice. Whew! Don't you just know that, we'll stop right there for today, don't you just know that Jesse's thinking, why didn't I, that day when they come and I was laying under the tree, why didn't I say, no thanks, y'all just go on about your way, I don't really want to be part of that. What a mess, what a mess. It's a real mess, and it seems like it just gets worse, which at least at the end here, they did, Jesse was, Whittlecomb did rule in their favor, and then the Court of Appeals upheld it, so that was good. It's interesting, though, all of it, the part we read today. I guess, start with the very first part, it's the elections for those trustees. Now, we hadn't heard the last about the trustees. There'll be more of them coming up, but I just can't imagine. I mean, I almost wonder, is Jesse like exaggerating a little bit just to make it a better story? Because I just can't imagine the fighting like that over the elections and people killing people and stabbing people, and there'd be 20 people laid out and, they got knocked out and other people fighting over them. I just can't imagine. I guess, though, if you think about being a trustee there, the way Jesse's described it, there would be real power in that. If you were somebody that liked to be in charge, and, we all know people like that power kind of goes to their head. But if you wanted to be in charge there, you'd almost feel like you was in charge not just of the teacher, but kind of like you had a right to man the whole school and just be in charge of the whole school. Now, I'm sure all the trustees weren't like that, but those that were, I guess that's where that terrible fighting was. Or maybe it was where one that was like that and one that wasn't, one that was fighting for it to be fair. I don't know, but I do agree with Jesse. Having 9 bosses would be hard. It'd be hard to please everybody, and especially, like he was making the point, the trustees, and I'm sure some of them, as far as common sense and all that, were really intelligent. I'm not saying that they were all dumb or anything, and I don't even think Jesse would say that, but they didn't understand about school and how it should work, and then they weren't impartial. So then that part, when they wanted some people punished, some pupils punished and some not, all those kind of things. So, man, it's just almost hard to believe that it was like that. Of course, I'm not saying that Jesse was lying, but it's just, I just can't even imagine it being that violent. And then I would like to have kind of been in the meeting again, the school board meeting. All these school board meetings with Jesse and his school board was really powerful and really exciting, But I would have liked to have been there when he pitched his, proposal of going against the trustees. And of course, we knew Mooner was going to get upset, and he was mad, but all the rest agreed with him. But then I would have really liked to have seen Dangerfield there at the end, when he just said, I'm against it, that's all he said. So, Jesse was disappointed. He was probably hoping that maybe he'd be for it, and then maybe them together could work on the others and get them to, to declare that it was something they couldn't support anymore. And then when he kind of gets over, he just says he's going to continue to work on that and study about the trustee things, and as I said, that's not over yet. But then school actually starts, and so he did get them all to agree that they were not going to pay Lansboro. It's so confusing because they're in the county, but then the town has its own little school system, but it's in the middle of the county. So makes you wonder whoever agreed to do that. It should just all be together. It seems like to me that it would be easier. I'm sure the ones that wanted that separation, though, had a good reason. anyway, but then the school finally starts, and then they realize, oh, we're not getting the tuition, and those students didn't come here, and there's no transportation. You know, they realize all those things kind of hit home or come to be self-evident, and then everybody turns against Jesse in the town. I liked when he said that Jason Farnsworth, who had been his friend, and then turns against him, but kind of sidles up to him, you know, like, son, can we work this out? And won't you? He thought Jesse might go along with him. Of course, he didn't. But I like that he told him in cold turkey. I thought that was a good way to say that. You know, that I really liked that line. I thought that's some Appalachian talk right there for sure. But and then Jason Hinton even told him he was ashamed of him. Just everybody turned against him, and he said it cut him to the heart. You know, really was like a knife cutting him, because all those people that had been his friends, and then they turned against him. And I'm sure they turned against him because they were for the Lansboro High School. I mean, the Lansboro High School, but also the school system there within the city, Lansboro City school system. But in a small town like that, you know, all of them knew, well, these people are broke. So where did they think that money was going to come from? Like, where were they actually going to get it from? So it's kind of that old saying, you can't get blood out of a turnip. I wonder if, you know, what they thought Jesse could do to, I mean, maybe they thought that he should take away from his students and give to them. I mean, some of those, maybe close some of those rural schools. I don't know what they thought. And then to find out, then Jesse, so they're upset about that, and then I guess that kind of dies down a little bit, and people are mean to Jesse and they ignore him. And then he discovers that Lansboro has took some of his students, and took some of the ones that did not graduate to go to high school, did not pass their, I don't know, if those days, I guess it would have still been the 8th grade. They didn't pass that to get to go into high school. And then also they were taking some of their 6th graders who shouldn't have been in high school. So, just a real turmoil between all the people in this little place for sure. And then the Jason Spleaves, he comes in and he gets involved. Now he sounds like a real character too. You'd like to see Jason, or I would, Jason and Mooner, what they would do. I mean, if they could be in a little fuss together, that would be interesting, I guess. That might end badly though for either of them or both of them. But so he gets involved, and then the first thing he does is go and convince the bootlegger, it's over, you're going to take your name off the petition, the suit against us, or I'm going to, you know, turn evidence over about you, and you're going to end up in the penitentiary. So he gets rid of him. And then the next poor man that takes it, I mean, it's just a total coincidence or whatever, but then the bad storm comes and he sees all the damage and he's afraid and he has a heart attack and dies. It's so sad. But it really, one of them says, or Jason Spleave says, the Lord's on our side, or, you know, kind of saying things are going our way. It does kind of seem like that up till then, you know, because things keep interrupting the suits. But then the last man doesn't back down, and he doesn't meet with an accident, or his health is not bad, or I guess he wasn't selling illegal whiskey. So ends up actually going to court. And then the judge, though, after they put forth all the evidence, the judge does side with them. So, and at that very last part, he talks about I think he says 32 suits took against him. I don't think Jesse stays there very long. I don't think he stays there long. So that really was a lot of suits suing going on there in that short amount of time that I think Jesse ends up staying there as superintendent. If you remember in one of the other parts that we read, it was that was the trustees. That was about the trustees too, that they kept the lawyers in business there, that they just constantly were suing this one and suing that one and suing this one. So I guess that was just a place that really liked to sue people. They liked to go get a lawyer and sue them. I don't think lawyers was as expensive as they are today, or I don't think they'd have been doing that. I think they wouldn't have been able to afford it. Man, though, I just know that Jesse's wishing, thinking, I should have just stayed where I was at. I should have just stayed under that tree that day and told them, you know, no, thank you. I don't want to be superintendent, because he's really got himself in a mess now. I just can't imagine having all that responsibility on your shoulders, and then worrying about the suits and the people mad at you, because that hurts so bad when somebody you really consider your friend gets mad at you and doesn't approve of something you felt like you had to do. I don't know if you've ever been in that position, but that does really, really hurt. So I feel for Jesse on that part. I hope you'll leave me a comment, though, and tell me what jumped out at you in this reading, and see if you're like me and you just can't hardly believe the elections and then some of the other stuff. But maybe you're like me and you wish you could be at some of those meetings, or maybe you're glad you wasn't there. But leave me a comment, and as always, I hope you drop back by next Friday so we can see what happens to Jesse next.